Hello, everybody, and welcome to the mini summit, Use Microsoft Teams Effectively, sponsored by Crow Canyon Software. My name is Jocelyn Foy. I'm in the marketing department, and I'm thrilled to invite you to enjoy this next speaker with us. We have Joel Oleson, who is an MVP in RD Microsoft. And he's starting us off in a series of 3. If you are interested in continuing on and listening to some more speakers, we have those coming up in the next coming hours. So this is a 50-minute webinar that we're going to be doing. Because we have 2 more following it, we are going to have to end there. So we ask you, if you have any questions, please write those into the question area of your GoToWebinar interface. If we do not get to them, Joel's going to answer a couple with some time at the end. If we can't get to those, we are creating a special website that is around this summit. And so we will be providing questions and answers. We're going to provide the recordings of the webinars and also other resources that may go along with them. So stay tuned in your inbox for that link so that you can access that information. And don't hesitate to reach out with further questions at sales@crowcanyon.com. Crow Canyon Software is a sponsor of this mini summit. We are a over 20-year-old software organization who we've been making out-of-the-box solutions for SharePoint and Office 365, as well as have developed a create your own software called Nitro Studio. And we would be thrilled to have you take a look at our website. But excitingly enough, we are pivoting to Teams in this series as well for its interfacing with our software as well. So I'm going to hand it off to Joel, and thanks again for being here. Again, if you have any interest to continue on in these other webinars, stay tuned for that information. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Jocelyn. It's great to be here, everybody. I know it's crazy times, but I'm just happy to help. And I do feel like learning about Teams is probably one of the best ways we can help. And absolutely, in fact, my last blog post on my collabshow.com blog is about the rapid response and what Microsoft is doing around crisis management. And basically things like lifting the cap on the free version of Teams, as well as what was a premium on the Power platform for notifications. They've temporarily removed that as well. So there's a number of things that Microsoft and really the entire industry is doing to help people who are trying to enable remote work. And I applaud the efforts of the industry, and all the speakers here that you'll see. Even we're doing this for the community. That we want to help spread knowledge, help educate people who are really trying to get this platform in place. And we thank Crow Canyon for helping organize this and pull it together. All right, so this first session is about the vision and strategy, and really, I feel like if you can just get your head around what Teams is, it's really helpful in deployment. One of the things you're not going to hear me say today is you need to slow down, because I understand people really need to get this platform in place to enable their employees. One of the things I want to do is just help you understand its capabilities and help you understand a clear vision for that. A little bit about myself. I've actually been working with these technologies for about 20 years, in the industry for even longer than that. Spent about 10 years on and off at Microsoft as a contractor and an FTE. Even when I was at Quest Software, I was actually on Microsoft campus. So I spent a lot of time rubbing shoulders with the product teams and influencing them, but also 6 years in Microsoft IT itself as an architect, rolling the SharePoint technologies and later the early precursors to Office 365. So I've been working with the technology for a long time. Right now, I am a director at Proficient, which is a nationwide consulting company. We basically do work with healthcare and life sciences, number of different industries we work in. been working with Microsoft for a long time. We're one of their preferred partners, gold partners, and all that jazz. So my agenda today, I'm going to be talking about this idea of modern teamwork. I want to talk about the vision of teams, a little bit about change management adoption, the questions people are asking today about what are the key questions around understanding adoption and understanding are people being successful with teams. I'd like to incorporate some of those concepts in here as well. But really understanding this idea of Teams as the hub, talking about some templates and some of the work that Microsoft's doing to enable and really building these kind of what I would call accelerators around your adoption and deployments. And I do want to save like 2 questions at the end, or sorry, save time for about 2 questions. I understand there's probably gonna be a ton, but if I can save time for 2 questions at the end, understanding I need to be done right at 9:50, so I'm going to fly through the second half. So let's talk about this. Focus definitely matters. You could say that context switching is an absolute problem. We get interrupted, and I would say even these days, I read one article, I see some article or notification pop up and realize I've just lost a half hour. That's actually, it sounds like that's pretty typical for people who trying to regain productivity after you get an interruption. And when in this day and age, there's so many interruptions we get. And it's difficult for people to do this, just switching tasks, going from one thing to another. And so what's great about Teams is how it can help us build our processes and teamwork right in the Teams interface. The other thing is really understanding how we're spending time and really truly understanding that a lot of what we're doing could be automated. Now, one of the things that I think that's really important in understanding is this idea of the digital workplace. This need we have to be able to organize what we do and being able to streamline those business processes, but even jumping between email to our instant messaging to conversations with bots to contacts and the business processes and so on. I love this this kind of vision statement from Ephraim Fried just a few years ago. He says, the future of digital working will offer tools that let us tie together our communications, content, tasks, applications, collaborative work, and other elements around work streams. What's fascinating about this is this was before Slack and before Teams, this idea of really being able to pull together our projects, our activities, this convergence of messaging, communication, collaboration inside of an application platform. It's really quite unprecedented. Unprecedented. I think it's really amazing to kind of see just how there's a real new paradigm shift in just how we do work. And a lot of, you could say a lot of industries, a lot of businesses are very far from this, but the intention is the various projects or work streams we have could be easily organized in what we would call channels across different teams that we're a member of. Obviously, fewer teams is better. And private channels can actually help us even within a team so that we don't have to break out into other teams, but be able to keep that work together. Mike Mandriana is actually talking about those private channels a little bit later on today. So as Microsoft kind of speaks to this, you'll find a couple of positioning things that they do, but it's this idea of making more of a human-centric approach to a workspace. So without having to leave Teams, we can actually get 80% of what we do right in the Teams interface around integration with the Power Platform, like Power Automate, Power Apps, where we actually have our working interfaces in there. We connect to our existing solutions. We can build in business solutions right inside the interface. And this idea that Teams is a hub, and you'll kind of see this as we talk more and more about this vision, but it's easy to say, oh yeah, well, Teams is the new chat app, or we use Teams for meetings. But what's unique here about Teams is that it actually can help you organize your files into these work groups, into these groups or teams of people, and then into those channels inside of that. And it's automatically behind the scenes, putting them in document libraries, automatically putting them in folders as it relates to the structure of how we do our work. So we don't have to worry about folders and those kinds of things. It's automatically doing it. When we upload and share a file with someone, it's automatically uploading it into OneDrive. If we share it with our team, it automatically puts it in our team site. And then it's in the interface, and people can click on it, and we can work on it simultaneously. We've got the tabs, which basically allows us to pull different apps into these different surfaces. I love the whiteboard as another way of being able to have these meetings and being able to get work done, and then posting the whiteboard into the team as well. Bots. So this is our intention of, we have these intelligent AI where they can be interfacing with some system and then being able to give us updates. One of my favorites is the out of office, being able to say, hey bot, what's my available time? All right, we'll book this time. I want to take this time off. You can imagine even with COVID-19 that related to FAQs, and having an FAQ bot that's hooked into the FAQs of the company knowledge and responses that may be different than it was even just a few weeks ago. Being able to have that FAQ be updated on the back end, and the bot is basically sharing people the right information. Sometimes it's tough to digest hundreds of pages of policies and that kind of thing, but especially for new employees. But being able to have a bot that can simply answer questions people have and intelligently respond with policies and process as it relates to information. We've got our channels, which are sectioned off into teams. We've got connectors that can help connect us to back-end data, line of business systems. And you think about Power Automate, which has connections to hundreds of other systems where we can do automation, and pulling that into Teams is really powerful. There's the apps, and we're talking like first party from Microsoft, but also third party from people like Twilio, or like SAP and Oracle, and on and on and on, tons of them. And then we have the calling plans. Not all companies will start with calling. That's a E5, or it's a premium kind of SKU, but absolutely, that idea of being able to have voice over IP and being able to do calling right from the Teams interface can be really powerful. And just real quick, early in the Teams deployment, they did some surveys to kind of figure out what was being successful, and getting feedback from the customers who are actually using it. And an independent study by Forrester in April 2019 put together this report, this total economic impact report on Microsoft Teams, where they found 80% of leaders reporting that it was making their teams more productive, and 83% reporting that it was improving customer experience. So this idea of being able to have these teams, these customer service teams, being able to much better organize their responses. And this continues to be really important, but understand the end user, they can make their choice around what tools they use. Even if we tell them, hey, you've got Teams, they may still choose to communicate over email, or they may still choose to pick up their phone. But enabling them and helping them with adoption are really part of this strategy. Some more statistics. I don't mean to dive so deep into all these, but essentially saving employees time, improving collaboration, helping people work outside. That's a huge one, is being able to kind of work with partners. Again, this was fairly early, so that was probably an early scenario for these companies. But being able to reduce time in meetings because you can actually more easily reach out. And with the work from home, Teams is really, really powerful. I was just talking to a company yesterday who did have Teams deployed in their organization. When the work from home started, they were just looking and they noticed just in this last week, the number of messages per day went from 1 million to 2 million. So they've actually seen the adoption almost overnight, over these last few weeks, where even though they had the tool, they were using it, but now that they've actually doubled just in the last couple weeks. So let's dive in a little bit further on this vision. And what I love about this idea of a vision for Teams is that you're not just let it be software. You're actually looking at it much more holistically, understanding how it can resonate with your company and having a vision for what it should be. And that way, as you're talking about budget and talking about your champions program, your program for building community around it, the better your vision, more articulate you are, the better you're going to be. And this idea of leadership, a lot of people think, oh, well, leadership are these CXOs, they're the executives. But really, leadership happens on the ground. It's about pointing in the direction and articulating a vision of the world that does not yet exist, then asking help from others to ensure that vision happens. And this definitely relates very well to Teams, because one person's going to see it as a chat app, and the next person could see this as a full-on application platform to transform the business, or even driving digital transformation. So when we talk about this vision, this is the Microsoft vision, providing a single hub to reduce context switching and making decisions faster. Automating workflows, routine tasks, increase the value of employee productivity. Now, you notice is in the interface itself, there's ways to do kind of work stream where it's human automation, but inside of this interface. But with the Power Platform, you absolutely can use a combination of Teams with the Power Platform to both build in the approval interfaces on the back end, using it for the flows, and being able to build your applications right in the interface with Power Apps. Really, really cool stuff. And that idea of bringing in applications, like you said, the productivity applications from Microsoft, but also things like tasks and planner. And when you look at the roadmap from Microsoft, this new tasks that's coming, which is a culmination of bringing in all the different tasks and plan data you have, project tasks and so on, and bringing those all in to a single interface right inside of Teams. Really, really powerful for personal productivity and being able to keep your eyes on what matters, and the number of dashboards and boards and ways of being able to see this on a calendar of what you're doing and what matters is really, really powerful. Now, this is an infographic that I worked on not long ago, that basically you could say that this move from Skype to Teams, there was a lot of confusion there because people saw this as the new version of Skype, and that's not the case. Really, Teams is born in the cloud. It's a new creation. It does have the chat calling and meetings functionality, but there's so much more to it when you start talking about channels and bots and apps and connectors and storage and even these tabs where we organize our workspaces and so on. So there's all this hidden rich collaboration functionality that didn't even exist in Skype. So as you define your vision, let's not be held down by what Skype's capabilities were. Absolutely look at Teams from a perspective of what's above the water and below the water. You may find that there's phase 1 and phase 2, but ultimately having a more holistic vision of personal productivity, team productivity, and even an enterprise level, how do you organize teamwork, these public teams versus private teams? And again, looking at that roadmap of how Yammer integrates with Teams, it can really be this powerful tool that has your communities as well as your teams and personal team productivity and so on. So it really is across the board a fantastic tool for as a really powerful interface. Speaking of interfaces, I did rip out the slide where I said that Teams is now on Linux. So there's a free version of Teams, cross-platform, iOS, iPad, Android. Microsoft's really done a good job of making sure it's on all platforms and all browsers. Really good stuff. Again, when you start talking about digital transformation and projects that may be happening throughout the organization, Teams is a great way to consume a lot of the other efforts that are happening across the organization. You may be working on a modern intranet. There absolutely are ways of pulling in your news, pulling in dashboards and reports and charts, being able to pull in even those hubs from a search perspective. I've seen a lot of partners as well who've been building extensions on search and connectors for Teams. And executive even dashboards and things like that. There's our productivity apps. There's the IoT dashboards where you can pull in Power BI, which really fits well into Teams. And the AI stuff that's happening with Project Cortex, really fantastic. That ability to take our conversations even and invoke the knowledge bot to save these conversations into topics that are in the knowledge center, like really cool stuff that's happening with Project Cortex as it relates to Teams as well. Now, what does success look like? This is something I put together that when you're trying to say, hey, are we looking at this more holistically? Some of the key things, these elements of a successful strategy, you need an exec sponsor, and that's going to help you as you share your message and your vision. The governance plan, absolutely. I could be speaking right now for over an hour just around the governance aspects of Teams, where you can actually integrate with the data loss prevention features to be able to block credit cards or let users know and warn them when they're sending sensitive information. There's the compliance aspects. And absolutely, one of the key conversations right now with COVID-19 is around measurement and being able to understand, hey, are people using the tool? There's the things in the box, but as well, we often use partners like tyGraph for being able to show sentiment and to be able to show, yes, people are using the tool and here's what they think about it. Or people in this office are feeling this way. So there's things that we look at not just in terms of its usage, especially if you're saying, hey, work from home, here's the tool, then you need to be able to get to that next layer of information that really shows, well, are they creating tabs? Are they using the Teams? Are they uploading files? How many chats do we have? Being able to really understand the counts and amounts, but business outcomes as well. Are we still moving the needle as it relates to business with our work at home strategy? And then this adoption change management. Essentially, you've got this distributed workforce absolutely right now. How are people getting help? Are you getting so many calls that service desk is inundated? Absolutely. Well, how do you remove some of that burden? Is to enable champions and building a champion program where someone on their team or someone in their department or someone near their location can actually mentor and provide information. And that can help you scale in a huge way, not only in adoption, but also just from a change management perspective. The training plan, office hours, absolutely. Another way to scale is to have this concept of office hours, so you're not getting pinged all the time and getting hundreds of service desk requests, being able to actually coach and mentor people who are trying to roll this out for their teams and trying to be successful. And I absolutely, going back to that iceberg example, this is an application platform. What is your application platform strategy? You need to be able to get your arms around that at some point. And I understand that's a maturity thing. It may not necessarily be where you start, but your ability to reduce the context switching, make this an effective tool, and delight your customers definitely connects in with that. How are we using this around business automation? How are we essentially moving the needle as it relates to reducing the chaos, simplifying the legacy behind the scenes, where people can have a simple interface to get their work done? Now, in adoption change management, what you would find is that there's this chasm. Essentially, there's a place where people often get stuck in their deployment of any technology, where it's somewhere around 34%, basically a third of the way through. People get stuck in this chasm where you've rolled it out, you flip the lights on, and about a third of people are using it. How do you get past that? Well, it's adoption change management. It's your champion program. And the success is beyond that 33%. All you're going to do is just add yet another tool if you haven't figured out how to do a true adoption program. And what's unique about Teams, or let's just say adoption programs, are more important for Teams than any previous Microsoft application. Seriously. Teams does need these coaching and assistance from other people. And it's not because it's hard to use, it's because of people not understanding the how and the what and its capabilities. They see it as a chat tool. They don't realize that when I upload a file, I can share it, or they don't understand that the emojis are right there, or the Giphies and that kind of thing. Their ability to be able to express themselves and their ability to get comfortable with it. They may be comfortable with the tool they've been using, and so to be able to get over this chasm, it does require some assistance. And it's not like you need to be taking everybody out and training them for a week, or even a full day. You can do this stuff in little lunch meetings, in an hour, or even quick 5-minute videos. You can get through a lot of those kind of tips and tricks and things like that. And again, kind of from that adoption perspective, we see where IT is really good at deployment and activation. Where they fall down is beyond that, the awareness, enablement, and proficiency. And the proficiency is really our goal, to where people are actually really comfortable with the program. They're gaining the business value. They're seeing this, using it on a regular basis, gaining that value. But often IT kind of sees it as somebody else's problem to handle awareness or training or adoption, all these kinds of things. So these are newer skills for IT, but absolutely very, very important in a Teams deployment. When you talk about vision, don't just think about this holistically as the entire enterprise. Think about what is unique to your own business. You may have facilities, or construction, or brokers and sales, people who are on the go, or people who are on site. Different employees have different needs. So as it relates to training, you may be training on the phone, or you may be training on an iPad. Understanding, is this something, how are people using it, and how can we actually help based on these different personas, these frontline workers. And this is probably the best frontline tool that Microsoft's ever built. And so you've got this awareness, enable, proficiency, kind of top-down change management. But from the bottoms up, you want to be able to empower your employees, and understanding these different personas, understanding what are the tools these teams are using, and actually building team personas to be able to empower and help with operational efficiencies. Working with business units. And a lot of this governance is things where you could actually be locking things down. So when you're ready to open them up or to be able to do more enablement, it's a lot of working with these different teams and understanding their goals and how they work so that they can increase efficiency and so on. This is actually a Microsoft slide, Microsoft IT, and how they were rolling out teams, and they came up with this idea of the art of teamwork. So the art of teamwork was a special, let's call it a lunch and learn kind of experience, where they wanted to see, is our training working? So they were tracking Teams versus Skype across chat and meetings and calls, and they could actually see how they were moving the needle with the managers, with those who are champions, and that their champion program was actually working. This is a little solution that we often work with. This is basically Power BI report, but using some tygraph as well with it to be able to see where in the world are people using this, who are our top users, what devices are they connecting with, who are the top people who are using these things, are they in our community programs, are they champions, how's the activity changing over time, what tools are they using, what about messages, how does that look like over time, calls, meetings, and chats, and so on. All right, so this next section, we're looking at the templates. And for the developers that we have on the call, Teams is absolutely an application platform. Not only can you plug in these first-party and third-party apps on that first line, where people can plug in those tools they use every day, but the low-code, no-code dev automation with the Power Platform, and even vertical solutions and building custom apps that both IT, maybe consultants like Proficient, who can help you build departmental tool, your departmental resources, line of business tools, vertical solutions, and custom processes, leveraging both the Power Platform, but also the dev tools. And so when you look at this idea of kind of this teams first approach to leveraging this platform, you can see just how much of what happens in the day and life of a given user can be pulled into this experience and simplified and increase automation, pulling in reports and graphs for business intelligence, but really being able to kind of be the center of work, this kind of modern teamwork experience. Hundreds of connectors that are out there, hundreds of ways to kind of pull in tools people are using every day. Kind of from an architecture perspective, this idea of you can connect right into Azure. In fact, Teams is actually the first major workload that was built from the ground up on top of Azure. So it's really, really quite powerful. It's also built on top of all these Office 365 platform and services, where you could say that Teams today is the best example of working cross workload. It's integrated with email, it's integrated with OneDrive, it's integrated with SharePoint, it's integrated with Planner, it's integrated with this plethora of the solutions that are built on top of Office 365 and brings it all in. We talked a little bit about that the Teams first approach. Let me just kind of simplify this for you. One of the cool things with it being built across all of these workloads in Office 365, I'm finding that people who are trying to get to the cloud, if they can actually learn Teams and kind of approach the whole tenant from a Teams perspective, meaning kind of organize all your SharePoint stuff and OneDrive. You don't have to force that stuff at your users, where if people are learning how to use Teams properly, they won't have to worry about ramping up on stream because it's going to come automatically. these tools and solutions like OneDrive, it's automatically going to do the right thing because it's pulled right into the interface. Even SharePoint, the recent updates around lists, where the list data actually is showing the rich view, where you can choose to go into SharePoint, but for the most part, maybe even 80% of the time, you can actually do your work without even having to leave the Teams interface, where SharePoint's doing the right thing behind the scenes. And just kind of a visual for that, you can see both email, SharePoint, Stream, Outlook, Exchange kind of stuff, where you're, depending on what you're uploading or interacting with, it automatically does the right thing behind the scenes. Really cool. And I don't intend to spend a lot of time here, but basically Teams itself is an app platform. You can extend it with tabs, bots, connectors, cards, these messages, extensions, feeds, notifications, right in the interface that they're using every day. Got developers who are wanting to get on top of Teams. There's a ton of accelerators and integration for, say, hooking into even platforms that aren't necessarily in the platform today, with things like webhooks and connectors. You're trying to build this on your client, you can use Node, the bot framework in .NET, Yeoman, the app templates, super powerful app templates, and the Teams App Studio. So there's already a plethora of tools. You have SharePoint developers, well, they've probably been working with SharePoint Framework. If they haven't, then they probably need to get up to speed. But SharePoint Framework, if you build stuff, you can actually build it in, build it for SharePoint and Teams simultaneously with this SPFX.
Hey,
Now,
Joel,
what are
this is Jocelyn, and to interrupt, I apologize. For anyone who is experiencing some audio issues, we're hearing a lot of people are losing audio. We do apologize, and if you log out and log back in, you should be okay. And we will be following up with a recording of this once the summit is over. Also, Joel, you have about 10 more minutes.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up this in the next 5 or so minutes, and then I want to have you guys, if you want to use the Q&A panel to put in your questions, I want to save time for a couple of questions. So anyway, these Teams app templates, Microsoft has built a number of these accelerators, including a brand new one related to our situation with COVID-19, where there's a new accelerator. I'm calling it an accelerator, but essentially it's this app template related to crisis management. You can head out to my blog, collabshow.com, and see all the different application templates built around crisis management related to the efforts Microsoft's been working on. But as well, these Teams app templates currently available. We've got HR support, the list search, FAQ plus, icebreakers, where it introduces people, the celebration bot. These are intended to be quick solutions where you've basically got, you could say there's those kind of no-code solutions that are just adding apps in Teams, and then there's the ones where you're building them from scratch. Right in the middle there is these app templates that are essentially designed to be plug and play. They're not completely plug and play. It's a little bit of low code. You need to connect things, but the HR support one, fantastic. So here's kind of diving in on what that HR support one has in it. It basically leverages the Q&A maker for a bot, for this kind of cognitive service, FAQ part of the application. There's the HR support bot for being able to connect users to subject matter experts. There's a support tab where the files that help people, and even then the configuration of connecting all this stuff. And it does leverage an Azure app. So you can kind of see that. There was an entire breakout session at Ignite. You can see the code down there. You can actually track down Christina Wheeler's session on the app templates. And basically, lots of resources to the different app templates, the development platform stuff, related to migration and stuff. Related to what we're talking about today, I did want to mention this Microsoft Rapid Response. We at Proficient are actually doing virtual workshops. In fact, we're offering essentially an hour or two with companies to help them, those people who are getting stuck or needing help, outreach. So feel free to reach out related to anything you've seen here today. And with that, I want to open it up for some questions. GoCon's going to be kicking things off at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, questions.
Okay, great, Joel. That was good. This is Scott Restivo with Crow Canyon Software. I've been trying to keep up with a lot of questions here. So I'll throw a few at you and see what we can do. One is about a Skype to Teams migration. Is it possible to migrate or using Skype in conjunction with Teams? And what one person labeled islands.
Yes. So basically, islands mode is default. You're going to be in islands mode whether you do anything or not. I'm not a fan of islands mode. Islands mode is not the only way to use both Teams and SharePoint or Teams and Skype together. Essentially, I would highly recommend you go and check out my infographic. Go to collabshow.com. You got to track down. If you search for Skype and Teams, I have kind of the different modes and my recommendations of which modes you should use. It's not a migration of data. It's essentially enabling your users to use the right tools and then improving the experience people have who are using Teams or Skype. Basically, Teams only mode is the goal. That's where you're trying to get to. But you can essentially make the decision. We want to use Teams for collaboration, but we're going to start in our migration where we're enabling the mode where it's essentially there may be some portion of users that are in these other coexistence modes. So there's a lot of good Microsoft information. If you want to grab my infographic, you can. In fact, I should probably just pull that up even. See what I'm showing, I'm talking about. But
yeah, we'll be sending the slides out anyway here, so
yes,
to people.
Great.
There you go, collabshow.com. Yeah, we'll send that out.
Yeah, and you can ask the next question while I'm pulling this up.
Okay, what you mentioned a celebration box. Where is that?
So these app templates, the celebration bot is one of the app templates. That one has been released. So basically, in those resources, the top is the app. So basically, what you're going to look is Teams app templates or Microsoft Teams app templates. So I want to just kind of point out this blog post I put together. We've got the Microsoft Crisis Management Response templates, remote work resources on coronavirus. Basically, you've got a Power Platform template that has things like employee reporting their work status, the admins being able to push news and updates specific to the organization, being able to pull in RSS feeds or Twitter feeds right into it. There's the Crisis Management Site Communication Portal, where you've got quick links and news and people and Yammer conversations you can pull right into this interface. So there's a step-by-step building a crisis communication site. And then related to Teams, we've got this work remotely with Microsoft Teams resource that Microsoft put together. They're giving a 6-month E1 freemium as well, or you can use the freemium version of Teams where they've actually increased the number of users being able to use that for teams who are trying to use it. A number of different resources like work remotely with Microsoft Teams, 4 tips for working with Teams, and then you've got this out of office dashboard in Power BI, which obviously you can pull into Teams as well. So the office absence in Power BI, there's a crisis bot for Power Virtual Agents. A lot of cool stuff. In fact, I saw a healthcare one that I just posted to LinkedIn as well. Here we go. This is the infographic on the migration approaches. So the question around coexistence, you've got your early adopters, the people who are ready, you can go directly to Teams. Your silent majority, those people who may need extra help, you can do a two-step coexistence where you move essentially using Teams for collaboration or Teams for collaboration and meetings. And if you need to go slow, you can start with collaboration, then move to moving meetings and Teams. But basically, you can kind of see the different modes. I'm not a fan of islands mode. It is the default mode where basically everybody is using every tool for every scenario. It's a bit chaotic, but a lot of companies hang out in that experience where you may be living in Teams, but you'll notice a Skype message pop up because you've got a user who's doing that. Where if you do one of these other modes, it can come up in the tool that you're using. Like if you move users who are ready to Teams only, those Skype messages can actually essentially be kind of like federated where it comes into Teams. So anyway, good stuff.
Okay, then anything you know about GCC, the government cloud? Some couple questions about the government cloud using Teams in that, or is that something we should look up?
I do know that GCC and is with Teams is in process. They're working on it right now. I don't know the dates.
Okay, and we can get some information possibly to people on that. What about 4 people show up in a Teams, in video? People are asking if there's some limit to 4 people's faces showing up, I guess, through video feeds.
So basically, what you'll find is the default is that it shows 4 faces. The Brady Bunch mode is something they're working on. That one hasn't shipped yet, but it's in
Brady Bunch mode.
Yeah, being able to see even more faces is so basically the way it works now is the people who are talking, their faces show, and the people who most recently talked show. So basically it's kind of focused on 4 faces, but Brady Bunch is coming.
Okay, then a kind of high level question. Why would you use Teams for like a large webinar like this one with several hundred people, or for teaching? Would you use it instead of Zooms? And I was saying probably not yet. You might use it. Those are too large
I'm
events.
more basically I'll give you my guidance. If you've got more than 250, you need to use live. If you have less than 250, you can use a Skype Teams meeting. But for more than 250, you basically choose live. So when you're creating the meeting, you choose a live meeting. And essentially what you're doing when you do that is it's a broadcast. So essentially you've got primarily it's with one speaker who's speaking to a large audience. And okay. I'm a fan. We used it at MVP Summit last week for all of our sessions, including the keynote. So the keynotes were done with live. All of the breakouts were done with meetings. It's definitely possible.
Okay, yeah, we got a couple more minutes before we, end this one, then start GoCons, and which people would have to log into separately, and that's how GoToWebinar works. But like one question was about integrating Teams with Cisco phones or other, how far can you go with integration? And my answer more or less is, well, as far as your programmers can take you, basically, right?
Well, I would say as well, there's actually a consortium where Microsoft, Zoom, and Cisco are essentially working on this idea that the conference rooms can be agnostic. So Microsoft behind the scenes is working with Cisco and Zoom so that the conference room can basically handle going from meeting to meeting to meeting. So those who are focused on callings and meetings, that improvement is coming from all 3 vendors as they put together some standards. Today, if you're in let's say your shop was set up for Cisco and now you're trying to move to Teams, that I would say spend some time with Microsoft to see what that roadmap looks like. But as well, there absolutely are devices that are Teams devices where there's even a Teams button on them. And there's more and more devices that are coming out So basically, there's a roadmap, but also it's improving. And from a development perspective, yeah, there's things you can do from the chats and meetings and callings and to do more integration. But even the vendor themselves, even Microsoft's doing a lot here.
Well, it's obviously a lot of interest in the Teams, and we're gonna have to end this in a few minutes and then get going with GoCons. But you can send questions. You keep sending questions to, if once we end the webinar, we won't be able to put it to the screen, but you can send questions at crowcanyon.com, and Joel, myself, GoCan, and Mike will try and answer those as best we can. As you can see, there's a lot of information Joel has on his website with this infographic and collab show and CrowCanyon. We do Teams integration also. So there's a lot of resources available to you out there. We'll try, let's see, if you want to put any last questions in for the next couple minutes, we'll try and answer them. Again, about integrations, like Mitel or Cisco or others. The one person was asked about XMPP. I don't know what that is, but XMPP requirements and a government cloud. So, there's a lot of good questions here.
Yeah, what I can do as well is I can take some of those questions and do a blog post as a follow-up.
That's right. That's what we'll do, because it's a lot of genuine, sincere interest, and the questions should come. They should keep coming, because people want to know how this works, and it's such an essential part of collaboration. Collaboration is such an essential part of work that the tool that you use to do it, you want to know all the different aspects and capabilities of it, of course, right?
Right. And let me just say, people who wanted to reach out, CrowCanyon mentioned their link to resources, but I will also be tweeting the link to the slides. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or want to follow up, feel free to reach out on my email as well.